Have you ever looked in the face of pure evil, in the eyes of somebody that's committed something horrible with no remorse whatsoever? You can just feel their evilness, that they don't give a damn. The only thing they care about is themselves. Have you ever met somebody like that and stared into their soul and knew it? You could feel it. I have. I'm going to get into a story today that's going to tell you about something pretty cold-blooded. So let's get into this. Nate G219 to Hell But Back and Better. Hope everybody's doing well, feeling great. It's Wednesday, not sure of the date anymore. I want to say it's April 5th, but it doesn't matter. It's been a long one, out catching up. You know, we've had some tornadoes in the region, so I do emergency responder work, first responder work, clean up for trees, clearing power lines. You know, trees come down on power lines. Homeowners need somebody to clear them. We're the guys they call. So, anyways, been out working a lot and got lucky enough to get a little bit of a break. But I am on call. But it's not the point. Today's story, I'm going to tell you about a guy that I had met. And then you can see into his mugshot that just pure hatred into his eyes. Just pure evil. And you could feel it when you sat with him. I met him during his fight. Well, I was in the same dorm as him, same pod as him when he was found guilty. Now, sorry guys, Steven was he had a pretty good job with one of the local power companies. He did work on power lines. He didn't do the tree clearance stuff. Made a lot more money than I did. Doing pretty well. And as you see in the thumbnail, had a very beautiful wife. She'd previously been an exotic dancer, but currently had been a stay-at-home mother. They had a little daughter together, and she stayed at home and took care of her. And Steven was able to provide. And apparently, according to Steven's brother and sister, they had been having some marital problems, money problems, and she wanted to go back to exotic dancing. And, you know, she was a very pretty girl and made a very good living doing it. I'd met her a couple times at the strip clubs prior to that. No, nothing personal, just seen her in there, going in there with friends when I was younger, whatever. But she had gotten out of that life and married one of the guys that came in there throwing the money at her. I mean, it's a lot of the times what happens. She had a past that had a lot of violent relationships that ended with, you know, her being abused, stalked, harassed, all of it. And this is that and then some. So January 16th, well, okay, I'm going to take it back to January 15th. The Lindsay family, Steven Lindsay and Melinda Lindsay, born as Melinda Kirby, had called police asking for extra surveillance in the neighborhood. And they had reported that in the previous weeks they'd been victims of a stalker, somebody sneaking around, thieving things, you know, just some mischief in the area. But having been who she was, a lot of guys wanted to be with her, of course, and she got good money. That's what she did. She provided for herself and her family. She was a money getter. And I'm not saying she was doing anything wrong, just a lot of times when a girl, especially a young, beautiful girl, ends up in a life where she's dancing, a lot of these guys that are coming in there are very, very thirsty guys. And they're there to try to wife a woman. She's not there for that, unless the money's right. Sometimes they are. I mean, it is what it is. Most of those guys know that too. But most of those guys are also very jealous. Steven was not any less of one of them. He was a very jealous, very thirsty man. Now I'm not exactly clear who had taken out an insurance policy, but 2 years prior, there was a $1.1 million life insurance policy taken out with him as the beneficiary on Melinda's life. And there was an insurance policy on him too, but there were reports just in the weeks prior to this of him calling, asking questions about the policy. So he thought he had this very deliberate plan, is at least what the prosecutor's saying. I'm just going off prosecutors' reports and what's convictions and jurors decided happened. I mean, I'm just the messenger here, so please don't take any offense if it falls down to be something else, but I felt pure evil when I looked into that man's eyes. I'd played a couple chess games. I'm not going to lie. The guy was a very, very smart man. Like I said, hold on, time out. Man had money. Man definitely had money. And he had a pretty good lawyer. He knew what to do. He definitely, as soon as he was charged, police, all right, I'm going to go back to the start of it. 911 call comes in. Steven Lindsay screaming that he woke up and was being strangled and was woken up to a gunshot. He said he didn't know if anybody was hurt or if there was anybody still in there, but he had seen his wife dragged in down the hallway towards the bedroom. He was sleeping on the couch that night for whatever reason. They had been fighting. She, like I said, wanted to go back to exotic dancing, and he wasn't happy about it. And you could tell he was pretty egotistical, that he was real, he seemed like a very controlling type of person. He was 36, she was 23, and, you know, he wanted her to do exactly what he wanted her to do, is exactly the persona that he put off, at least. I don't know that that's exactly what happened, but from what I've read, you guys can Google it. That's exactly what it seems like. Now, when the cops came, they found him zip tied behind his back, and in the baby's room, the 2-year-old's room, and he said that's where he woke up to the gunshot at. So apparently his story is that when he got choked out, he said it was a rear naked choke or a rear choke. He got tied up, taken into the room, whatever. He doesn't even know exactly is his claims. Woke up when the gunshot went off and got to a phone, or had a phone, called 911, reported this. Cops show up, find him tied up, find Melinda dead in the bed, their bedroom. It's a single gunshot wound to the head. They also find the weapon, the pistol, partially laying under the bed. So, you know, the story of this perpetrator is just not adding up to the cops. It doesn't even sound legitimate. But again, he's zip tied behind his back. But there's zip ties. That can't be too hard to do. And they said it was pretty loose, and he was able to wiggle his way and make a phone call, and his hands were still behind his back. If you're zip tied by a perpetrator that's out to do some murder, come on. It just doesn't make sense. And he had filed a fast and speedy. So for those of you who don't know, if a fast and speedy trial, if you file for a fast and speedy trial, the court has 72 days to have you in the courtroom and being in front of a jury. Judges, courts, they don't like it, because now, instead of it taking a year, 2 years, sometimes 3, I've seen 4 or 5 years of somebody fighting a case before they're even convicted. They're sitting in county jail fighting their case. Instead of that, he made them speed it up so they had less time to develop and acquire the evidence, proper evidence that they need to, you know what I'm saying, convict them and stuff. So he sped it up. And, you know, as a criminal, that is a very smart move, especially if you're a guilty party, and even not guilty. I mean, if you're speeding up their time, there a lot of times, a lot of cases, a lot of places that have been beat because there was not enough time to gather the evidence that was needed. And later it was proven that they had actually been the offender, but the jurors found them not guilty because the evidence was not there. So double jeopardy. They're not guilty. They're not guilty. That's it. So in Stephen's case, there was a hung jury and a mistrial. And then on the third trial, he was found guilty by a jury of 12. I was in the same pod. He'd come back in about 10:30 that night. You know, you could see the news crews out in the back of the jail. All that was going on. He'd been found guilty. And a few weeks later, it's usually about 4 weeks, they got to do a PSI, pre-sentencing investigation. This man had had no criminal history whatsoever. They, you know, gave him 55 years. So, and the prosecutor, Cheryl Polaric, who was the same prosecutor that I had, was shooting for 60 years. His attorney, defense attorney, was shooting for 45. They met at 55, and he has to serve at least 75% of that. So, all right, there was a couple things I had to make sure I wanted to cover up on. All right, there's no evidence of any struggle, any break-in, for one. All right, there was evidence of him possibly having tied himself up, and GSR, gunshot residue, came back positive on his hands. So it was like a long-term plan that he had thought out. Now, I want to get into the mentality of something like that. Somebody like that can be so jealous. They're sociopathic. They're worried about themselves and themselves only. Now, I'm not saying killing is right, but you know, if you're a person of the Bible, killing's not always wrong. I mean, an eye for an eye, if it's not a sinful whatever. An eye for an eye. I mean, but that wasn't this case. This was just a case of pure evil. Now, that man sits in the same prison I had sat in. and he's already lost one appeal. There's a couple more things that he can do, but it doesn't look promising for Mr. Steven Lindsay. I don't know. I just wanted to get this one out there. I felt horrible for that young girl. Just such a beautiful girl with a daughter that not only lost her mother, lost her father. And that man cared about one thing and one thing only. And it wasn't about getting his family fed or making sure the mortgage or rent was paid or whatever. It was making sure that not another person saw his wife in that situation, you know. If she is his wife and is a loyal wife, and she's willing to expose herself for you, I mean, that, you know, some men would take pride in that, especially when you met the girl there. When you met her there, you gave her half the money. Now she's willing to put herself back out there for you when her whole goal was to find a man to get her the hell out of there. Now she's willing to go back to that to help you, and you shoot her in the head. Try to collect out on an insurance policy. How'd that work out for you, Steven? I know they got the jacks up there. For you, those of you don't know, in Indiana, they call a cell phone a jack, usually. Or a hitter. I mean, there's different terms for it usually, but it's usually referred to as getting caught with a jack or having a jack. I got caught with a jack, that's why I say getting caught with a jack. Sorry. But, I don't know. Tell me what you guys think about that mugshot. Tell me if you see pure evil. Tell me what you see about her. I see pure happiness, pure joy in her photo. I see nothing but evil. I felt nothing but evil. And I don't know if you've been around it. A lot of those that have been locked up definitely have been around pure evil and pure hate. And that, to me, in my opinion, in Nate G219's opinion, is a man with no remorse whatsoever. He might be sad for himself that he doesn't get to see his daughter. That's it. Probably more so that he doesn't get to collect that insurance policy and live his life. So, anyways, I got a couple more episodes coming at you guys soon. I've got a couple big things in the works. My whole channel was started to get attention to a couple cases and maybe help change the youth of going down the same roads of some of the stories I'm telling you. Now this story, if you're a sociopath, you're a sociopath, man, I can't help you. You need a shrink, and you need one now. Before you're Steven Lindsay. And if you're battling with drugs, man, shout out to me, man. I'll talk to you. I'd be happy to talk to you. I'd love that. If I could help one person, man. And I told you previously about a guy, and, you know, I'd met in segregation, and, man, he was one of the most hardcore individuals I'd ever met. And, like I said, was the first person I would put in the line with me at any point in time. I'm not saying that at this point in time I wouldn't. But my man Kim Folk came home, and not only came home, has flipped his life around. That man, you know, being in segregation will mess you up after a few weeks. Being in long-term segregation will permanently mess you up. I was in there a year. Okay, and I felt that that's a long time, but now he spent years in there. My friend Corey spent 12 years in segregation. The damage that does to somebody's head is irreparable. And I still, like I said, sometimes I wake up with nightmares. I wake my wife up having nightmares. I've almost hit my wife because of nightmares. Just being held down just because I was swinging at the air, whatever it is. I you know, PTSD, cold sweats, 2, 3 in the morning, wide awake, and but those stories are going to be coming at you soon. So I'm going to be starting to do some interviews, a couple other plans too. So a couple other really big plans. But anyways, hit that like and subscribe, please. Hit that Cash App if you want to help donate to the cause. I'm trying to get the studio together so I'm not sitting on the couch in the living room. And, you know, always giving back to the community once I can. I definitely want to help get out the people that deserve to get out. My boy Ariel, I hear some big things may be happening. I just can't find it out. Ronald Sanford, the 13-year-old that was sentenced to 170 years. And, I mean, there's hopes. There's big hopes. We might have made enough noise. I don't know. Maybe we need to make more. But, anyways, hit that like and subscribe. And, enjoy the hell out of your day. It's another one out. You know, if they ain't hating it, you ain't making it.